because you're currently at teaching at George Mason, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And in 2014, you helped start a DNA lab there.
Yeah.
And in 2020, I gotta assume in the height of COVID, you guys helped start a forensics lab there. So
Mm-hmm.
how was the process in one, starting up a lab, two, starting up a DNA lab of all things, and then three, starting up a forensics lab?
Yeah, it was crazy. So when I started at Mason, there weren't any DNA courses or anything in place. So I was the first one to kind of start the DNA program there. So I started the DNA class for the undergrads, and now we have DNA classes, multiple, not just traditional forensic DNA, but we have like advanced, we have like next gen type classes. So the program
Mm,
has really grown since 2014. But we continue to emphasize the point that we need a DNA lab. Like, you cannot train forensic DNA students and not have a DNA lab. But as you
right,
can imagine, DNA labs are very, very expensive to start up.
exactly.
So, the first thing was figuring out the funding. Like, where is all this money going to come from? Because you're talking about, a quarter to $500,000 to start a forensic DNA lab on a small scale at a university.
Hmm.
But thankfully, our university backed us, and they understood fully how important it was to us. So they were able to find the funds for us to get started. And then the challenge was the space as well, because forensic DNA needs not just one, but two, really three, because I would have loved to have a lab prep room. I do not have that right now. But you need at least a pre-amplification room and a
Right.
post amplification
Posting.
room.
Yeah.
So you have to find two spaces, and then you have to be very specific about how those spaces are used, because forensic DNA is highly prone to contamination. So we had to be, mindful about where we were going to be and who was going to be sharing the space. And right now we are sharing that. I'm kind of like overseeing the lab, but we do share it with the biology department. So we have to be like in constant communication with them. But it was really interesting because I had worked in a research lab before I was in the crime lab at a university. So I did a lot of the stuff that I needed to do for this. So, like, establishing like protocols, knowing what instruments to order, planning out the validations,
Hmm.
establishing your safety mechanisms and your quality assurance program and all of that. It took some time because we were doing it from the ground up. So
Right.
that was a lot. And then most recently, it got even more intense because we have two campuses at George Mason. We have one that's in Fairfax, Virginia. We
Hmm.
have another one in Manassas, Virginia, which is called our Science and Technology Campus. And because the space we have now is shared, they're actually building a brand new building on the Science and Technology Campus that really our entire program is moving out there, because we have a body farm out there now. And so our whole program is going to move out there. And starting that lab, they've just started the construction, but that was intense because not only did I have to basically redo everything I did on the Fairfax
Hmm.
campus in terms of determining the instrumentation and all of these things, but I had to go as far as to talk to the individuals who were building it about lighting needs, electrical and data requirements, ventilation needs, what type of water we needed, gas needs. So it was things that I really was never even familiar with, because of course I was used to working in the lab, but knowing the extent of the information that I had to provide to them in order to kind of, I mean, literally this time build it from the ground up. But, I
Right.
learned a lot through that process. So that was, I mean, I feel like that was a really interesting couple of years to go through as we were figuring that out. But it was also
Right.
fun because I mean, I really got to like, live my dreams. I was like, no, I need 8 hoods. I need this. I need that. And I mean, I just reached for the sky. I was like, here's all the things. I was like, if they say no, they say no. But
Nah.
and thankfully they said yes to most of the things that I need. And I was like, I
Mm,
need this many biosafety cabinets. I need this many fume hoods because it's not just a research space, but we use it for teaching too. And we try to make the students' experience as close to realistic as possible. So like a lot of
right.
times I would get these questions like, well, do you really need that? And I'm like, the answer is yes. Even though it
A
probably
hundred
was
percent.
no. But I'm like, look, if you want to like pump out top-notch students, like you need to mimic the exact crime lab experience as best you can because
Right.
I think that's what's going to make them more competitive candidates when they go out into the career field because there's so many talented students entering the field and you have to have like that one or two things that makes you stand apart. So the closer we can get to realistic, the better. So that was a journey for real, but now
Yeah,
I'm
of
super
course.
excited to see what it's going to look like. We're supposed to be moving into that new lab, I think at the end of next year or the beginning of 2025. So I'm
Mm,
excited.
It's amazing.
right.